Hello and welcome to another short video about posted in the past. This project is all about researching postcards which were sent more than 100 years ago, and I've researched the people who received the postcards and sometimes who sent them. And I've used genealogy to do this, and that means finding the records that would be familiar to anyone who has researched their family tree. So you would look at census returns, marriage registers, probate records, all of the resources that are available to anyone interested in researching their family tree. Even if you haven't looked at your own tree, you might have watched A House Through Time or Who Do You Think You Are, and they will have used the same resources, and you often see them actually on the screen where they show the census returns and relevant certificates. The postcards that I research are chosen at random. I don't know until I have started the research what I'm going to find. All I know is when I buy a postcard that I can research the recipient. I can find them in an official record. So in this country it would be the 1901 or the 1911 census offer the most easy access to actually beginning the research. Sometimes I'm drawn to a postcard because perhaps it is of somewhere I'm familiar with, and that's the case with this card, which was sent to an address in Norwich in Norfolk, but the postcard is actually of Dunster and Dunster Castle in Somerset, and I chose the postcard because I know this area and it's a place I've visited many times. I have driven through it on my way to other places, and I've also stopped and actually enjoyed a cream tea or visited the castle. It's on the way to a number of places that I like to visit in that region, Porlock, Salworthy, Minehead, and going up the coast to Watchet. So this area where this postcard is from is actually very familiar to me, and so that's why I chose it, but I had no idea what I would discover as I began the research. As I said, the postcard was sent to Norfolk, and when I began researching the tree, I was quite surprised to find that the recipient actually had a connection to Watchet. Now Watchet is a coastal town. It has a harbour, it was a port, and it's quite an industrial area. The hills that are looking down on to Watchet were mined for iron ore, and this ore was transported down to Watchet on the mineral line, which is a very steep incline using a railway. Today that's long gone, but the incline is still there, and it is very steep. I can vouch for that because a few years ago I did a guided walk, and we actually went down part of it, and it's actually very hard to walk on it because it is so steep. So it's an industrial area, and also in Watchet itself there was a paper mill, and actually paper had been produced on this site for hundreds of years. And when I have visited the town, the paper mill was actually in decline and actually eventually closed. And this obviously affected the town because it was a big employer. It covered a large area of the town. But the card itself provided quite a remarkable connection, which I really wasn't aware of. The recipient's surname was Wansborough. And this is actually the name of the paper mill, and I didn't actually click with that at the time because the card was sent to Norfolk, so there was no obvious connection. But when I worked on the family tree for the person who received the card, I found that his family were involved in making paper, unsurprisingly, and that they had lived in the Bristol area, and that then they relocated to the Watchet area and gave their name to the paper mill. At one point, the mill was actually the largest manufacturer of paper bags in this country, so that gives you some idea of its size. A few years ago, I picked up a leaflet, and it was a guided walk that led you around the perimeter of the factory site. Quite scenic actually, because there's farms and what have you around there. And you walk round and you can see the buildings, which were actually in the process of being demolished. And these were modern buildings that I was looking at this time. The historical buildings were long gone, or they weren't actually visible from the route of the path. Now the recipient's mother proved to be quite one of those wow moments for me as a researcher. She was born in Bristol, and I found her baptism records and found that she was baptised in St Mary's Church in Redcliffe in Bristol. Now, if you've watched A House Through Time, you might recall the series which was set in Bristol, and they featured a house in Guinea Street. And this church is mentioned in one of the episodes. I think it was when there was a foundling who was left on the steps of the house, and she was eventually baptised in this church. I think that was how it was mentioned. When I had the baptism records of the person I was researching, it confirmed the address where her family lived. They lived in Guinea Street, which was one of those moments that I thought, ooh, wow. The house they lived in was a few doors down from the house that was featured in the TV programme. Unfortunately, that house has long gone. There was a few houses around the featured house which was still there when they made the programme, but some of the houses opposite and further down were demolished a long time ago, and where this particular house was is now a block of flats. But it's quite remarkable to find that this postcard had this connection. And of course I was able to re-watch this particular episode and could see that the people that the researchers had been talking about actually would have possibly known the family that I was researching, because they were neighbours, and undoubtedly they would have needed to walk past each other's houses at various times. But there was another facet to this story which involves the recipient's wife. Now, she had several brothers, and they emigrated to America, and they eventually settled in Skagit in Washington State. Two of the brothers married local girls, and they were sisters, and the other brother had already married in this country before he emigrated. The three brothers opened a hardware store in Skagit and were very successful. When I was trying to find information about the family in America, there was a wealth actually of information. There were articles in local history journals, articles which had been written and published relatively recently. So they were still an important part of the town's history. So I think this story sort of indicates to you that you really don't know where a postcard will take you. I never dreamt that the postcard I'd chosen because of the view, because it was familiar to me, would actually lead me to a connection with Watchet in Somerset, which is somewhere I know well, and it would connect with the TV series A House Through Time, and then it would also take me over the Atlantic to Washington State. Of course, a lot of the families that I've researched over the years I've been doing this have connections with families who emigrated, especially to Canada. So it wasn't a surprise to find that a family members emigrated, but it was a surprise to find that they'd all settled in this area eventually and become successful and become well known. Anyway, that's the end of this short talk. You can find me on social media, on Twitter and Facebook as Posted in the Past. Every day I share a postcard, and it might be one from either of my books. This particular postcard is featured in Second Delivery, which has just been published. And the other postcards that I share are ones that are in my pile to be researched, and I'm not going to run out anytime soon, I can assure you. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this short talk, and I'll try and record another one fairly soon. Thank you.